city of Valdosta cases.
All right, as we talked about at the work session, which is I guess a couple weeks ago, this is a tale of two welding shops. Welding and machine shops require conditional use approval and highway commercial zoning. It is something that's been in the city ordinances for probably 40 years. It has been almost 30 years since we've had any such request, and then for some reason we get two of them in the same month, and the two subject properties are literally 2,000 feet apart from each other. Both properties have a similar history, similar background, a few interesting details, but it is the same request. Similarities are as follows. Both of them were part of an annexed island from 2006 as part of the Little Miami Island. They had highway commercial zoning in Lowndes County, or I think it's a permitted use, at least it was back then, I think it still is. So upon annexation, they were each given highway commercial zoning. They were grandfathered into the city as of that date. That would work, except that the properties then went vacant for more than 12 months in recent years. So at that point, they lost their grandfathering status. And in both cases, it is new owners, one of them I think family related, but they're wanting to resurrect the old business. The old welding shop, machine shop businesses have existed there for decades. The sites sort of bear that out, and the surroundings are very much a heavy commercial, industrial-esque kind of area. So the use is there, which is, is one of the purposes of the conditional use permit process, is to sort these case by case. Subject property has the same zoning as Norman Drive and the Valdosta Mall. This is not something we would necessarily want to see in that commercial area, but in the South Patterson corridor or in these locations with this history, it is certainly much more powerful here. So those are the similarities between them, but for the details, the first one is the request by Mills, Permanent Metal Decking Company. This is for property located at 821 and 823 South Lee Street. This is in this last segment of South Lee between Griffin Avenue and South Patterson. For those of you who've been to Ella's Top Corral, with their drive-through, this is directly across the street from the drive-through facility. Building has been there a long time. It's two parcels of land, but together they not quite meet a quarter of an acre. It's a very small site. There are two buildings there. They take up most of the land. The applicant has already started moved in and started cleaning up the place. There is no room really for expansion, although I think they're wanting to remodel to a greater extent the smaller building at some point in the future, maybe create a little more on-site parking. Normally with conditional uses, we require site plans for these. I did not require that this time because of the circumstances. With this property, it's its small size. It's really just the existing site. Any changes to the site would have to go through regular plan review process. And so anything would be new development and be an improvement over what is there now, in addition to what the applicant is doing, which is mainly cosmetic changes. So you see the pattern of highway commercial zoning. Character area is community activity center, which supports that level of commercial zoning. Aerial image, you see the rooftops of the buildings. You can see where most of this property is under roof. Ella's Top Corral, you see across the street. To the north, you have heavy automotive type uses. Weisenbaker Garage is another older commercial use that's been there a long time. Subject property photos. This is the smaller building on the northern parcel. And then, let's see. And then the Ewell Street is actually the bordering street to the south, even though it doesn't look like a street. It's an old annexed county right-of-way from yesteryear. There is a house back down there in the back that is very hard to see other than the fence. And that is all that's left of that area. Ewell Street, basically an unimproved road. And then swinging around to the right, this is the retail store in the corner with the large billboard, Ella's Top Corral. And looking northward back up toward Griffin Avenue, and then you see the backside of the Weisenbaker Garage there. So this one is special exception for, conditional use permit for PMD company on a quarter of an acre of land. Staff has found it consistent with the comprehensive plan. The conditional use review criteria, which are there in your packet, and we're recommending approval subject to two conditions. First one is approval shall be granted in the name of the applicant only for a machine and welding shop facility in conjunction with the applicant's heavy construction business. Part of the footnote, the applicant is not here, but in your packet is a very well-written letter of intent. I hope you've reviewed that, but they are a good, large growing business. They operate in different states, but they have a lot of heavy equipment they use. This is basically a shop for their equipment to do some welding and some heavy stuff like that. So it's not the focal point of their business, but a necessary component. But they work in different states, and that's where they are now, on a job site far away. And their apologies for not being here this evening, but they'll be around for the city council meeting. And then the second condition is the expiration date. Conditional use approval shall expire 1 year from the date of approval if no business license for the proposed use has been issued by that date. The business license for this facility is currently pending, so I think if approved, they will have that done pretty quickly. Any questions on this one?
And you may ask my question, this is not a dry-hub welding shop, this is strictly for their business.
This is for their business. They don't, to my knowledge, they're not planning to farm out any other use. I think they have enough going on, but it's part of a heavy construction. These folks build, like the name implies, permanent metal decking. Part of that is, one of the examples is bridge construction. So they do some heavy stuff. Most of that heavy stuff is done on site, wherever they're building things. This is for maintenance and repair of equipment, where they need to create a special piece, maybe for a bridge, or repair their heavy equipment that they're using. Kind of an interesting description when you read their letter, but they're a good company.
And they'll have sufficient space to park equipment or whatever they need to do there?
You know, it's just a handful of employees, as I understand it, would actually work here, dealing with their own stuff as it comes in and out. So the main building, which is, you know, a good-sized building, is mainly warehouse and workshop space. The other building, I think, for the short term, is more of an office-type use, but I think they have plans long-term for that. One of the things I did not mention, but is part of the consideration of both of these properties, this area along Griffin Avenue and southward down to South Patterson, long-term is a designated redevelopment area for the city. You know, we're building the, you remember the Harvest Station apartment buildings. Phase 1 is built, phase 2 is starting. That's part of the catalyst for this whole area. That's one reason for the approval in the name of the applicant only. In the next several years, certainly works. We look at 20 years from now, the land use pattern of the surroundings might be a little different, which means if this were to change to a different operator or goes empty for a year, at that point way in the future, we might want to rethink the land use pattern, depending on what happens redevelopment-wise. So a lot of variables in this equation, but like I said, this is a tale of two welding shops.
Anything further for staff? Is there any?
World's on fire over there, I see it turning up there.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this case? Seeing no one, is there anyone here that would like to speak out against this case? Well, we will now close the public hearing portion. Are there any further questions for staff from commissioners? All right. At this point, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, for this conditional use request, file CU-2025-04, they're requesting additional use permit for a reinstated machine shop, welding shop in the commercial highway zoning district. And as Matt so wonderfully explained all the details and the conditions, I would like to make a motion that we recommend approval.
We have a second from
I
Commissioner
second that. Yours.
Commissioner Miller. All in favor?